Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Rabbi Mark, I'm hoping during our April retreat to lead a square dance with this kind of music. I
Well,
teach
we're
people
definitely going to do some Israeli folk dancing, that's for
that.
sure.
I know too, that too. But
But
I want to,
maybe we can get Renee to lead some contra dancing.
yes,
And I hope by April I can dance.
Yay! If you can't dance, I don't want to come to your revolution.
just so you know, I'm a professional contra dancer. I mean,
I,
caller.
oh, you
Caller.
are?
Wow.
I
Caller,
wasn't
yes.
aware of that. Well, you know what? We're all here on time, so let's start. Yeah! I've been to Romamu, I've been to BJ, I've searched all over for a place to pray. I found the mosh pit and knew that this was it. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray. So is Neil Young, by the way. I found community that is in tune with me, singing and dancing in our Zumba God. Some contemplation mixed with elation. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray. I see you singing, Elizabeth. A chance to meet you, a chance to greet you, a time to deepen what it means to belong. Let's have some fun tonight and spread some joy and light. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. Let's just face it, we're all turning gray. Hit it! Half pre-recorded on the harmonica.
Yeah.
Hey. All righty. Welcome everybody to Mosh in the Mountains. Well, not really. There's Scott and there's Maira and Ellen Weaver, the Dream Weaver. And there's Mitzi. Hi, Mitzi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So tonight, my friends, we are going to, it's kind of like a prep for next Wednesday when we watch Commandment 613 together. I want to offer some background on why this is a mitzvah, looking at some texts and looking, of course, at some commentary on those texts. And then we're going to look at some tachlis too, in the way that Torah is made and the sofer's job, et cetera, and all that goes with that. Next week's movie, by the way, feel free to to invite people and pass along the email with the link in it if you know anybody else that might be interested. And I see Diane's arm there in back of Hoff, and so now we're good to go. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and if anybody, if you have a question or a comment, of course, feel free to wave frantically or to hit your raise hand button, and I will see you jumping to the top of my screen. All right, any questions before we begin? Any comments before we begin? Okay, any complaints before we begin? All right, okay, here we go. And there's Rachel, the poet who goes by Rachel. All righty, let's put a spotlight on me there so that everybody can see the text. Excellent. All right, so we are looking here. Hold on a second. I don't think that's right. I think this is from Devarim. Okay, I don't know if somebody wants to do a quick look up there. I didn't think it was from Leviticus, from Vayikra. But in either case, somewhere in the Torah. Somewhere deep in the Torah. Vahaya shivto al kisei mamlachto When he, now who is the he? This is the rules, the laws of kings. Now, if you recall, Israel is clamoring, or there's going to be a day. This is kind of like Hashem, knows how the beginnings and the ends of things, and knows that there's going to be a time when we're going to want a king of mortal flesh to be ruling over us. And so, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to come over here. There we go. Okay, now I can see everybody. Welcome, Carol Ann and Elka. And so these are warnings as well as instructions for when that day comes. More about the instructions than the warnings. When he, meaning the king, is seated on his royal throne, v'chatav lo, he shall write for himself, right? Et Mishnah HaTorah Hazot al Sefer, right? So he shall, a Mishnah can sometimes mean a repetition, to do it again, right? Here it's going to be write it again, what? Meaning a copy of this teaching, HaTorah Hazot al Sefer, right? So it'll be written as on some kind of a scroll, Bilifnei HaKohanim HaLeviim, and witnessed by the Levitical priests. What it really means, written for him on a scroll by the Levitical priests, actually, I'm not quite sure, because we're going to find out very soon that this is what the king is supposed to be doing for himself, right? Not relying on other people, but we're going to see in a little while too how we can do that, how we can rely on others for us to fulfill the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah and all of that entails. So continuing, v'hayita imo, that it, meaning the scroll, shall remain with him, right? V'karavo, kol yemei chayav, and let him read it all through his life. L'man yilmad l'yir'a et Hashem Elohav. And so, why? So that he live in a state of awe. Of course, here it might mean to revere Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, or it could mean, of course, to be in fear of. But us moderns, we not crazy about that understanding of that word yira. So why all of this? Why should the king do this and have it with him and read it? Lishmor et kol divrei haTorah hazot. So in order to lishmor, right? Shamor ve'zachor, right? A shomeret is one who guards or a shomer. To observe all that is written, everything that is the words of the Torah, divrei haTorah hazot, right? You know that when I or you or somebody gives a devar Torah, here's the same phrase, right? Divrei Torah, meaning many, more than one devar Torah. V'et chukim ha'ela la'asotam, in order to guard or observe faithfully every word of this teaching, as well as the chukim, as well as the laws. Now remember that the chukim are those laws which are not readily understandable to our left brains, right? And most importantly, la'asotam, to do them, right? It's not enough to know that they exist, but that the king should then be a role model for everyone else, right? If only it were so in our country, right? Okay. Any questions yet before I flip the page? Here we go.
It is Devarim, you're right.
It is, right? Devarim, I don't know how that snuck in there. So this obligation for the king is noted by the Mishnah in Sanhedrin. While it is incumbent upon every Jew to write a Sefer Torah, the king's obligation goes beyond this. As the Gemara explains, right? He must write 2 Sifrei Torah, one that remains in his royal treasury, and another that he carries with him wherever he goes. Now, I don't think that we're going to take that literally, because I don't think anybody's pocket is big enough, or anybody schlepping a Sefer Torah along with any king is all the time, but wherever he shall go. I'm sure the king had many different places that the king slept overnight. He's supposed to take this with him to remind him of all the chukim and mishpatim. As the Torah says, it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life. So let's turn back a page. Right, let it remain. V'hayata imo. So you can see how the commentary is sometimes on the Peshat level, on the simplest level, is really taking the text at its word, right? It's when it says that he shall let it remain with him. V'hayata imo v'kara v'kol yemei chayav. He should read it every day of his life. Let it remain with him means just that to in the Mishnah, and then as unpacked by the Gemara. He shall be with him, he shall read it. So now we move, we're going to skip many centuries from the Talmud to Rambam, right? So we're talking Middle Ages and Rambam's Law of Kings. Now remember that Rambam's task is that he's categorizing a lot of things that were not done before and helping us understand what the Gemara might have been saying, because it's not always readily understood. And he's making it more easily understood for us peons, right, who may not be Talmud scholars. Sheila, welcome. And so here's what the Rambam says, Maimonides, in the Law of Kings. During a king's reign, he must write a Torah scroll for himself in addition to the scroll which was left to him by his ancestors. Okay. So Rambam is more than implying that scrolls have been passed down, but even though he has one, he has to write one for his own. If his ancestors if his ancestors did not leave him a Torah scroll, or that scroll was lost, he must write two, right? One to remain with him at all times, and one to be left behind, in the castle or wherever he happens to be living, and perhaps one to be passed on. One in whose writing he's obligated, as is every individual Israelite, in which he places in his treasury. So that's what I was just saying, right? And the second one, which should not move from his presence. So wherever you go, I shall go, the Torah says to the king. And he takes that literally. And another one is for good, safekeeping somewhere, in the king's castle. So now he's got two Torah scrolls. But if one had not been left for him, he's got to write two. Do you know how long it takes to write a Torah scroll? It's a really long time. And we'll find out next week from the Sofer's mouth, from Kevin Hale, exactly how long it takes for him to write one from scratch. Know that Kevin does a lot more repair work than writing in original scrolls. Comments, questions before we move on to the next page? Okay, here we go. Fasten your, yes, Elizabeth.
Comment, can you hear me?
Yes, great.
The comment is when a king is ordered to do something, it's the royal we. So I doubt that it was actually him being the sofer. I don't know. I'm curious about that. That's how I understood it.
Right. So we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have those kinds of records. But we do know that it was that this was something that he was supposed to do. Whether he gave that responsibility on his behalf, which is what we can do to fulfill that obligation for him to be Yotzei. Everybody know that expression, Yotzei? Anybody not? Mitzi, do you know? You know. So to be if we say a Yotzei, it means that you fulfill the obligation, a particular obligation, to do something. You're saying Amen to a prayer that somebody else says, for instance. If you say Amen, you're Yotzei, because as is when you say Amen, it's as if you said it, right? So you have fulfilled the obligation of doing that. And there are other ways to be Yotzei for different things. Devorah and then Ellen. Up, you put your hand down, Devorah.
Well, my question was answered. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Ellen. Sorry, I unmuted you, and then you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Just a comment I wrote in the chat that in this particular copy, it says he must write a copy of this Torah as a scroll edited by the Levitical priests, which is very different from they write it, but he's sort of with them in the
Yeah. So they're alongside.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's their job, and they're going to know the scroll a lot better than the king will. Right. Terrific. Thank you for sharing that. Sheila, your ancestors were scribes who wrote Torah back in Russia. Beautiful. Did you ever see? Oh, Sheila's gone. Sheila, did you ever see any of those Sifrei Torah? Go ahead.
I don't know if I have. I've always hoped I would, but I don't know. In fact, one of the congregations here in Frederick, they got the Torah at one point, and everyone had a chance to write a letter in it. Take a pen and I always hope that at some point that'll really happen. All I know is where was I verklempt when I was doing it. It just brought tears to my eyes thinking this could be the one. And it's amazing. I know that my Zadie said he used to see his ancestors sitting in long white robes in the house, and they'd be there, and that was it. They'd be sitting at a table. And the maiden, their name was Pargament, which I think it means parchment. I don't know.
I don't know.
Cool.
You can Google that.
You mean the name, or?
Yeah, right. What that word means.
Yeah, it's parchment. I know it's parchment.
Okay.
And then he left. He got out of Russia when he was 15 in the turn of the 20th century. So he stopped hearing from the relatives.
I had a good friend in high school. His name was Kenny Sofer. Of course, to us, he was Kenny Sofer. Ellen, was there something else you wanted to raise up? Go ahead.
I usually don't do this, but I just had to add that my mom, who was, an original Reformed Jew who didn't believe in God and was happy that her rabbi didn't know if he believed in God, was so excited when she got to write a letter in the Torah scroll that synagogue was doing.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. There's an old joke. The Cohen goes to synagogue to talk to God, and Schwartz goes to synagogue to talk to Cohen, right? So there are many different things that bring us to and return us to the tradition. And that is a lovely example of a doorway that opened up at that moment. That it's more than magical. It's just very moving. Thank you for sharing that. Okie dokie, let's move on. Thank you, Devorah. The Kesef Mishnah. So this is a commentary on Maimonides. The Kesef Mishnah notes that the halacha noted by the Rambam, whereby if a scroll is inherited, the king need only write one scroll, is special to the king. For a regular Jew, even if he inherits a Sefer Torah from his fathers, he still must write a new Sefer Torah for himself. I'm not quite sure I understand that. It seems to be actually contradictory in a way. If you can help me, if a Torah scroll is inherited by the king only needs to write one scroll. That's only for the king. For a regular Jew, even if he inherits a Sefer Torah from his fathers, he still must write a new Sefer Torah. But how is that different from the king having to write Sefer Torah for himself? Anybody?
I'll take a guess. I'll take a wild guess. Yeah. It will be wild. Being the king, I guess it is good to be king. It was the king, and the king had the ultimate law of the land. So it was passed down from generation to generation. And then you had the lesser, or for the regular Jew, you had the Sefer Torah, which was probably more of an intimate, well, more of a family kind of thing, like the family Bible, well, that family Torah. And it may have been more personalized. Well, the kings may have definitely been personalized, but everything I'm sure was referred to as, you know, this is the king, and he's, like you said, he's, you know, he's up there with God.
I'm still not sure I understand, though, because it seems in the end they're both writing a Torah scroll. So I'm not sure. So let's leave this behind for now and move on. But based upon on everything we've learned so far, why is it that we don't all invest in ink, parchment, and plenty of time as required for writing a Torah scroll? How indeed do we fulfill the Torah mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah? And it's already been mentioned by Ellen, and that, you know, your mom, and filling in that, you know, a letter of the Torah makes you Yotzei, that you have fulfilled the obligation. Going back to the Rambam, it's positive commandment for every, that's a mitzvah, a taseh, to do, as opposed to lo taseh, not to do. For every, I kept his language in here, forgive me, in Israel, to write a Sefer Torah for himself. The source of this is now write for yourselves this song, which we had before. Sometimes the word Torah is understood as a song. So remember, at the very end of Sefer Devarim, the long soliloquy that Moshe gives is referred to as a song, right? But basically he's expounding, and it's part of his Mishnah Torah, repeating the Torah. So Torah sometimes, and I like that a lot as a musician, you know me, understood as a song. Well, Ellen?
I thought, now I just forgot what I was going to say. I thought that we were just supposed to learn and write the song, which is his last giving over, the rise up, oh well. You know, well as in the air, not oh well.
No, I get it. I'll tell you a funny story about you. So, Ellen, you're struggling over the word be'er, right? Meaning a well, or...
No, I'm not struggling.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I heard something different.
I just thought instead of writing a whole Torah, because you had to be so holy and mikvahing all the time and really learning the job for a lifetime. I don't get it, how everybody's supposed to write a whole scroll.
Yeah, well, that's why we don't. And only certain people do it, because it takes so much learning and so much kedusha to prepare oneself, holiness, before you enter into doing it. And then, of course, there's the scribal arts itself. That's no, small thing to learn how to do. All right, back to, there we go. The Rambam, let me just make sure I didn't skip anything. There we go. Gemara makes a point of a great virtue of performing this mitzvah, explaining that somebody who writes a Sefer Torah is considered as if he received the Torah directly from Sinai. Now that's pretty cool. I really like it. I just want to, the truth in advertising, I didn't know a lot about this before. It's not an area that I have studied a lot in. So I learned a lot in preparing tonight's, and I didn't know. It's as if, ki'ilu, right? Received the Torah directly from Sinai. Now we're moving into the area of, do you really have to write a whole Torah by yourself? The Gemara in Menachot reveals that the mitzvah might not require actually writing the Torah. Check this out. One who purchases, you read ahead, Ellen. One who purchases a Sefer Torah, I bought one, from the market is considered as if he has grabbed a mitzvah from the market. That's kind of neat. One who writes a Sefer Torah, I have to go like this, but one who writes a Sefer Torah is considered as if he received it at Sinai. So it's not the same level of Kedusha, but it still makes you Yotze, right? It still fulfills the obligation. And we'll see how it really gets carved down to its bare essence, so that it be accessible to more people, to be able to fulfill the obligation. Right? Rav Sheshes, this is also from the Gemara, one who corrects even one letter is considered as if he has written the entire Torah. So included in that, we can say that, or understand that why the Sofer leaves certain letters incomplete when given the responsibility and job of writing a new Sefer Torah for a community. And that way, you open up the scroll, there's letters that need to be completed, and as many people many more people have the opportunity of fulfilling the obligation. Rashi, so we're still in the Middle Ages, explains that one who purchases a Sefer Torah fulfills the obligation of writing a Torah. So he's reiterating what we learned from the Gemara. According to Rashi, it thus emerges that the basic mitzvah does not require writing a Torah, but rather bringing a Sefer Torah into one's possession in any way. All right? He takes he makes it easier. All right? However, not every commentator agrees with this. It shouldn't be so easy. The Rambam, however, makes no mention of the option of purchasing a Sefer Torah, but speaks only of writing one. So the Rambam's coming after Rashi. The Minchas Chinuch, okay, let's take a look at what that is a legal commentary on Sefer HaChinuch. That clears that up, doesn't it? Sefer HaChinuch is the book of educating ourselves about all the mitzvot, right? Systematically discusses the 613 commandments of the Torah, their biblical source and philosophical underpinnings. But that's a Sefer HaChinuch. Then the Minchas HaChinuch serves as legal commentary through the perspective of the Talmud and Rishonim, so of the Talmud and later commentators. Minchas HaChinuch is studied widely in yeshivas and in private study groups and remains popular to this day. The work is noted for its technique of isolating legal concepts through the use of uncommon test cases. Listen up. Such as whether a hermaphrodite is obligated in the mitzvah of be fruitful and multiply. I would say that's an uncommon test case, would you not? This feature of the book makes it a useful starting point in conceptual analysis of Talmudic topics. A starting point, this is why Talmud has always been twist my head in knots. And has never been easy for me, and I gravitate much more to Hasidic text. So again, the Rambam makes no mention of the option of purchasing a Sefer Torah, but only of writing one, and this Minchas Chinuch explains that according to the Rambam, a person must literally write a Sefer Torah, or if he's unable to write the Torah, he must appoint a scribe to do so on his behalf. Now it's taking it even one further station down the road, right? Because now he's giving us yet another way to do it by appointing someone to do it on his behalf, right? In the same way that, if the father is a little squeamish at the bris, or does not feel 100% comfortable in performing the rule, what the mohel does. I mean, this is the same concept, right? I'm not doing the circumcision on my two boys. I'm going to give that responsibility over. He acts as my emissary, and I observe the mitzvah in that way. It's all over the map, and I referred to that before. So it must appoint a scribe to do it for himself. The Ramah. Okay, this is Moses Isserles. When you talk about big shots, he's a big shot. 16th century, and to this day, he's considered a giant, and not just commentary, but a legal scholar. Okay, he sides with this approach, ruling that one who purchases a Sefer Torah that requires no correction has not fulfilled the mitzvah at all. Right. So look at the way we've gone. It's making it easier, but we're going to place a little bit of fence around the Torah here, and say that it was too easy to go purchase that. You need to have made a correction. I actually, with my Sefer Torah, I had Rabbi Kevin Hale look at it. It was at a Kala in Massachusetts with students, and they made some corrections. This is based on the final sentence of the above cited Gemara, which notes that somebody who corrected a Torah is considered as though he wrote it. Whew, good for me. Absent a correction, no mitzvah is fulfilled. Sheila. Unmutest thou self. There you go.
Okay. What you said about the idea of the father, if any father performing the Brit Malach on their child, is that really in Jewish law, in Jewish tradition, in Jewish custom? Is that at the same level as saying, well, I'm going to get someone else to write a Torah for me? Because I can see where my thinking is, it's a baby, it's my baby. How can you do that to your own kid with a steady hand? Whereas with the Torah, it is the holiest of holy books, but there's less jeopardy.
Yes, but there are years and years of learning, the skill involved. I want to correct you on your pronunciation, Brit Milah. There's no ch at the end
Brit
of it.
Milah.
Milah. In either case, the reason why they are comparable is that you can assign emissary through which you become Yotzei. You have fulfilled either the obligation, the mitzvah of writing a Torah, or of circumcise, of Brit Milah. Elizabeth.
Yeah, my question is about whether, I was thinking there's the correction, but there's also repair of the Sefer Torah.
Absolutely.
And that counts comparably.
Well, I think, didn't we see that on the last page?
I haven't got that.
Well, let me just check, because I thought that we have. So you see, where it's absent a correction, no mitzvah is fulfilled. So the correction in a new Sefer Torah is going to be that letters were not completed.
Right.
Right. And this is a good question. Hope you're making some notes for next week, because obviously they know a lot more about this than I do. And whether or not I am Yotze. Now, I went and purchased a Sefer Torah. Does that fulfill my obligation to write a Sefer Torah? According to this, no. That Sefer Torah I bought, I knew needed repair. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a whole other question, Elizabeth, is to ask whether I gave the Sefer Torah to Reb Kevin l'shem mitzvah. I wrote meaning for the sake of the mitzvah. If that was not my intention, maybe I have not fulfilled. Are you following me? I actually wrote my senior teshuvah to become, to get my smicha, my ordination. I wrote about a situation where the father had his son circumcised in the hospital before 8 days, right? And Beregel Echad, standing on one foot, I made the case that because he did it, and the father shared with me, hey, I'm a Jew, my son's a Jew, I had him circumcised, right? Because it was the father's intention at the time of circumcision, the Shema mitzvah was for the sake of the mitzvah, even though he didn't perform that in the way that is usually practiced, that we were going to let him go. We were going to say, kosher. However, and I will tell you the punchline to this, I did finish the teshuvah saying when the boy became of age, before becoming bar mitzvah, that he should be notified or let known to him that for all intents and purposes, he might, for his own future, that he should do hatafat dam brit, taking a prick of blood from the head of the penis, in order to cover all the bases, to make sure if he had done that, he would certainly have fulfilled the obligation of being circumcised. But anyway, that was a long explanation of what my teshuvah was about. But this whole concept of one's intention before doing a mitzvah is really important in our tradition. There are some mitzvot that you don't have to have an intention for. You hear the shofar blast, you're yotze, right? But there are others that that you have to have the intention going in of X, Y, and Z of what the mitzvah is before actually fulfilling it. That's a whole other category of stuff. It's really interesting stuff. All right, so I'm going to ask the question. I'm sure that's on everybody's lips. Are women obligated to write a Sefer Torah? All righty. Now, we might base a quick answer on, well, this is not a time-related mitzvah. So how does that affect our answer? Let's see. We're going to have different opinions all over the place on this. Since women are not obligated in Torah study, the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah does not apply to them. But 17th century Lithuania, the Shagas Aryeh, now pay attention. Where's he from? Lithuania. He's a Litvak, right? He's crossing every T and dotting every I. He questions this premise, commenting that this mitzvah does not fall within the category of time-related mitzvot from which women are exempt. He also notes that although women are not obligated in Torah study on the same level as men, they are obligated to study those parts of the Torah relevant to their lives, which is why women recite the daily blessing over the Torah. Right? So he's actually taking a stand on this that you might not have, guessed from, 17th century Litvak. He's lending some leniency to this. Now, we don't know, or I don't know, if there's a context to this, right? Are women obligated to wear tefillin, right? The answer is no. It's a time obligated. But are women, I'm going to use the word permitted, to wear tefillin? Well, we can go back to the context that Rashi's daughters all laid tefillin on a daily basis, right? So sometimes answers are given within the context of the time period and what people are doing. That's how halacha sometimes evolves. There's the famous understanding in halakhic literatures. Let's go out and let's see what the people are doing. When the rabbis are discussing, well, what should we do? We say, well, this, we stand up, we say the Shema, we sit down, we say the Shema from the old joke, right? Well, let's stop arguing and go see what the people are doing and take our cue from them. So we don't know in this case whether there's a larger context in which he says that, but he's making the case for it being, okay for a woman to do this. Okay, we're going to do a quick recap. Ding, 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 ding. I needed a bell for that. All right, so here's a recap. The optimal way to perform the mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah is to actually write a Torah scroll with ink and parchment, or to appoint an agent to do so on one's behalf. 2, according to many authorities, one who fulfills the mitzvah, also fulfills the mitzvah by purchasing a Sefer Torah, though this is not optimal. 3, if one wishes to fulfill the mitzvah by purchasing a Sefer Torah, it is best to ensure the Sefer is incomplete and completed by the purchaser or an envoy, as Kevin made the repairs on my Sefer Torah. According to the Rosh, 13th century Germany, the principal mitzvah today is not the writing of a Sefer Torah, but writing and purchasing sefarim that are commonly studied from. I'm not quite sure what even that means. Writing and purchasing sefarim? In other words, if you write a new book that is commentary, is that what he's talking about? Or, and writing and purchasing, or is it purchasing, does that mean if you buy any old sefer, you've fulfilled the mitzvah? I want to know more about that. I'm going to bring that up with Kevin next week. 5, authorities differ over whether it remains a mitzvah to write an actual Sefer Torah. We've covered that a bunch of times, and the majority opinion is that women are exempt from the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah, but they are not, they're exempt, but they are not, but still permissible. It's not that they're, don't do that. All righty. There's a beautiful line in Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, which we sing, Yozi v'zimrat ya, or if you want to sing it to, some people sing it to the what we think might have been the trope for Tehillim, Ozi v'zimrat ya v'yehi lihishua zeli v'yanavehu Elohei aviv aromamenhu yai lai lai yai 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 yai. I love that tamim. It's so beautiful. So Ozi v'zimrat ya, right? Ozi, what is Ozi? The Torah is my strength, right? And my deliverance. Now here's the line, and I shall beautify. Ze Eli, this is my God, ve'anavehu, right? I shall beautify, glorify God's name. So this concept is called Hidur Mitzvah, right? Of beautifying the mitzvah. In other words, don't go out and buy just any, anyway, let me positate this. The more beautiful our ritual objects, for instance, the more that we are beautifying or glorifying God in our midst, right? By the just handling of objects like the Kiddush cup or Havdalah candles. Don't buy the cheaper one, buy the more expensive one. I mean, it is this line why the real, the machmir, among us, will purchase the most expensive and perfect etrog. Right? It's all based upon this, all right? Beautify yourselves before God through the mitzvah. Make before God a beautiful Torah scroll. Write it expressly for the purpose of the mitzvah with quality ink and quill. Have it written by an expert scribe and wrap it in beautiful cloths, right? We have the beautiful mantelpieces and the beautiful, silver and gold what are they called up on top? I'm having a brain, but anyway, you'll let me know. And that's from Shabbos 133. So you're supposed to beautify the mitzvah. The Maharal, 16th century Prague. Anybody that know what the Maharal is really, really famous for? Go ahead, Ellen.
The golem.
Yeah, the Golem. The Golem. Explains that the way in which God reveals God's self to God's people is a reflection of their status at that time, meaning it could very well be meaning their financial wherewithal, right? Not everybody can go out and buy these things that we talk about. Midrash Tanchuma states that God appeared at the Sea of Reeds at the time of Exodus as a warrior right? Ish milchama, as Sinai, as a teacher of Torah. And in the days of Solomon, God revealed God's self in accordance with the deeds of the people. So I'm sensing that the point here is, whatever our relationship is with divinity, that is the context in which each of us individually glorify through the way that we bring to life and animate our mitzvot, whether it be by ritual objects, or what about really singing beautiful Torah trope, right? And doing the study that's necessary to do that in a beautiful way. And then just simply, in the way that many of us here volunteer for the Moshe community. That too is a way of beautifying the community through your deeds. And so there's many ways of fulfilling this obligation to Chidur mitzvah, right? When a Jew expends effort to beautify a mitzvah, he is in essence beautifying himself. Scripture likens Israel to a dove and the mitzvot to its feathers. As in Psalm 68, as the feathers cover the dove, so do the mitzvot adorn those who perform them. That's a beautiful, beautiful image, isn't it? That our mitzvot adorn us with each mitzvah that we fulfill. It's like we become more and more rainbow-like. When a Jew enhances his or her own soul by performing mitzvot in a beautiful fashion, the God's presence among God's people is beautiful and enhanced, as it were. As it were, this is my God, and I will beautify God. For those of us who have been, in Israel to see the Chagall windows, for instance, or in most synagogues, they do their best to beautify things in ways to make the sanctuary feel more like God's ma'on, God's abode, God's place. When you think of this week's Torah portion, Vayifga HaMakom, Vayifga Yaakov. It's the first place where God is referred to as a place, makom. Yesh Hashem makom hazeh va'anochi lo yadati, right? God was in this place, the makom. And then one of our understandings is God is every place. And so God is the place, the foundation, right? And so if that is true, and that is what our sense says here, then wouldn't we do everything to beautify every space that we're in, right? Which is always our invitation to everybody, come to Moshe on a Shabbos morning and beautify the space, because it's not only important, it won't only affect your davening, it won't only affect your presence, it'll affect my leadership. It'll affect other people who are looking at you, because you have taken the time to do the mitzvah of chidur mitzvah, of beautifying your makom, your space. Hav.
I'm just wondering if there's the other school of thought that is one of simplicity and no fanciness and no overt physical beauty, but just sort of old school, barren, without all the fancy footwork. I got the one you're talking about. I'm wondering if there's also a school that proselytizes keeping it very, very simple and not having fancy stuff at all.
It's a great question, and I think it's the Essenes, Essenes, that were known to strip things down to the bare minimum. That people lived according to Torah in a very, very simple manner. We don't have a history of monkish lifestyles. All right, Ellen, did you want to address that? I got you.
having clean, simple lines done for the purpose of beautifying is different from having things be barren. I mean, the Essenes were not barren. They had beautiful things. It was just very simple.
Mhm.
And I think beautifying doesn't have to be fancying, but it's beautiful to the person who's creating it. Anyway.
Right. No, I think that's a nice point. And also, you know, if we take the time to declutter our spaces, right, behind us, even just for that, would be with the intention of beautifying our space. You not necessarily have to add anything to it. I mean, you're in a very simple, clean, visually, Huff, right now. So there's nothing that needs to be subtracted or added. Somebody else had their hand up. Go ahead, Rachel.
If you go to the synagogues of the very religious Hasidim in Jerusalem or in Tzfat or in Akko, their synagogues are completely bare. They have nothing there. They do
Right.
not have anything on, and they just have walls and chairs and tables sometimes, and that's all. And the Torah, of course, where the Torah is, but they have nothing to make it beautiful or anything like that. Very simple.
Yeah, so different communities, different minhagim, and also they're beautifying, you know, the glorifying God through their worship and through their dvekus, you know, for their clinging, and you know that there's different ways of understanding this. Ellen, do you have your hands up again? Okay. All right, so we're going to get into for the remainder of the time tachlis stuff. So this has all been some important and interesting information, I think. But let's start taking a look at of the actual writing of a Sefer Torah itself. So first of all, a kosher Torah scroll must be handwritten. This is done by a sofer, scribe, a specially trained individual who is devout and knowledgeable in the laws governing the proper writing and assembling of a scroll. I don't remember in the documentary if Kevin talks about how long he studied. Sofer is from the Hebrew root lispor, to count. According to the Talmud, these scholars would count each letter of the Torah. The modern scribe is called a sofer stam. Now here, stam is an acronym. For Sefer Torah, it's for the various things that the sofer might write: a Torah scroll, tefillin, and mezuzah. Right? All of these ritual objects must be written according to strict standards regarding size, lettering style, and layout, which is why a Xeroxed copy of the parchment, of the cloth, is not really, you know, beautifying, right? Do people do it? Yes, you know, but it's if you want to be machmir about it, and this is also too why you know, my very frum brother, once in a while he'll ask, "Have you checked your klafim? Have you checked your, you know, your mezuzah? You know, because maybe something got scratched inside or wear and tear over time, that it's not kasher, it's not kosher anymore." The materials used for creating these sacred items are restricted as well. Parchment used for the writing must be made from the skin of a kosher animal. The scribe mixes special ink for the writing and prepares the actual writing utensil, a quill, usually from a turkey feather. And we're going to see all of this next week. She or he, and I use the she there, and we're getting to that, uses a reed instrument to scratch lines into the parchment in preparation for the writing. Okay, so we have a very sharp, with a sharp, you know, end, one of these instruments, and these lines are going to be the lines that he or she writes on. Once all the writing has been completed, the pieces of parchment are sewn together with thread made of animal veins The finished scroll is attached to wooden rollers. No instrument containing iron or steel may be used in the creation of a Torah scroll because these metals are used to create instruments of war. Side note is that when the DLTI, the Davening Leadership Training Institute cohort that I was in, there was a tear. There was a place in the Sefer Torah, not in the parchment itself, but some of the veins had come loose, right, from the top, which oftentimes does. And Reb Marsha, she repaired it with dental floss. You know, you do what you need to do. I don't know if there was an ending to that story, whether or not it was then taken to a sofer for further repair to replace the dental floss with the animal, the thread from the animal veins. But that might be another question for next week. Are we obligated, you know, if a repair is made with dental floss on the fly in order to protect that Torah scroll, does it need to be replaced in time? Would somebody write that down for me? I'm going to forget all these questions. All right, the scribe prepares the parchment by scratching 43 horizontal lines on it and 2 vertical ones at each end. Each sheet of parchment contains 3 to 8 columns of writing, and certain letters might be stretched within a column to justify the left margin. So the number 42 is really important here. Why? Yeah, go ahead, Sheila. I gotcha.
It's got to be uniform. It's 42 lines per page, and it would have to symmetrically look good.
Absolutely. It does have that result. But what else is 42? That's correct. And?
It's the prayer. The Anagbakoa.
Yeah, well.
The name of God.
Which is the name of God. Yeah, the 42 letter, the mystical 42 letter name of God. Right. So that might be another question for next week is, do we know whether the 42 lines was intentionally to correspond to the 42 letter name of God? I'm going to go out on a limb and say I probably was. Alrighty, and for everybody here, I'm sure has looked inside of a Torah scroll and you wonder, why is that letter stretched out so far, right? Well, it's because they had their own way in those times. They had their font size, and each scribe has different fonts that they're working with. Most of them look very much alike, but according to who they've studied with and what, whether it's Sfard or they're Ashkenaz, is going to affect what they look like. Now, when Kevin looked into the Torah scroll that I have, he commented he couldn't believe what the crowns looked like. They were very, very unusual. And he can only guess at the age and where that my Torah scroll came from, because we're not sure. And of course, left justified, just like we do, on a typewriter, which we used to use, or now in our computer programs, everything's justified in the Torah as well. There are some places in the Torah where certain letters are larger and smaller than standard, or where the text is written in a different type of column. Each deviation from the norm carries a special meaning. For example, in Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, which describes the parting of the Sea of Reeds, consists of 3 interlocking columns. Let me just skip ahead to the next page. Wait a second, I went the wrong way. Oop. Oh, I thought yeah, okay, there it is. Okay, that was I couldn't get a more clearer, but you see, you've in the middle, and we're going to get to it in a second. It looks like the Israelites marching to the sea, like in the middle, and on either side you have the banks of the sea. The 2 outer columns symbolize the sea parted on either side, with the middle column representing the children of Israel marching on dry ground. Visually, this sets the section apart from the surrounding columns. Such changes were instituted by the Masoretes, right? So this is the Masoretic text referred to. Scribes of the 7th to 9th centuries who standardized the biblical text to highlight the importance of certain passages. So this places in a little bit of quandary, right, to answer the question. Well, but I thought that the Torah was handed down to Moshe at Sinai and then passed on, to Yehoshua, and then on and on and on. Isn't this the way it was handed down? Well, if you're a documentary theorist, as I am, you have no problem with that. We'd have to ask somebody who is more of a fundamentalist that question and then run. Such changes were instituted to highlight the importance of certain passages. All the writing and layout must be done exactly to specification in order for the scroll to be kosher. And there it is again. And you see everything is justified in all the columns. I once worked with a rabbi who was very machmir about not placing your talus, when you go to on the scroll itself, but rather in the column closest to the word which you start from. And that's what I've been instructing people ever since, because it makes total sense that the more you touch the Torah, the more of a possibility of scratching something out. And then even more so for the Baal Kriya, the person who's reading the Torah, not to drag the yad across, right, Ellen? Writing a Torah scroll is a holy task. In preparation, the scribe immerses in a mikveh. Before beginning a new scroll, reciting a formula, declaring his intent to write the scroll for a holy purpose. So there comes it again, right? The kavanah, with the intention is a necessary part of sitting down and writing a Sefer Torah. To make sure all the tools are fit for the task, he tests the quill in ink by writing the word Amalek on a piece of parchment. So you can see there's a picture of it underneath, of the word Amalek, and many, many examples of that, of the scribe writing the word Amalek and then crossing it out. And that's to test the quill with the ink, but also fills the different mitzvah. You get like 2 in 1. Because we're supposed to blot out the name of Amalek, I don't think that the Torah text is referring to that, but, we take the opportunity to expand upon our understanding. He then crosses it out with a number of strokes in order to fulfill the commandment of blotting out the name of Amalek, a biblical enemy of the Jewish people. A woman is soferet, and they're women sofrot. So that's 2 examples. I don't know who they are to tell you who they are. The woman on the bottom is holding. Anybody know what that what she's holding up? It's Megillat Purim. Because it's the names of the sons in the right column, and then they're out of here, right? And clearly the woman on the left is working on a Torah scroll, and there's like a one parchment that's going to later be tied together. Oops, sorry about that. Oh, was that the last one? That might have been, that's it. That's the last one. Bing. So there's a quick run through of what we can expect next week. And there'll be a lot of more questions that arise from the movie, and lots of time to ask both Miriam and Reb Kevin any questions that you come from tonight or from watching the movie next week. There's a local rabbi here in Washington, D.C. That self-taught, and Shmuel Hirschfeld. He's an Orthodox rabbi. And there's a short on YouTube, a movie of him working on his Sefer Torah, and you can see how he scratches out the name of Amalek as he's working. And right above him is the last few words of the bracha, of the blessing that he says for the intention, right, of writing the Torah. So we have time for questions, comments, stories. Ellen.
We know that most people don't actually either purchase a scroll and have someone do the correction, or completion. I'm just curious how this has stayed as sort of the law that we're supposed to. I mean, I understand Hidur Mitzvah and I understand a lot of things, but the specific of writing or purchasing a Torah scroll is huge. I mean, most people won't have written, any kind of book.
Right.
So I'm just curious.
Anybody? I mean, I have an answer. We followed we followed the commentaries going from this is what's supposed to happen. It's to write your own, all the way to having an emissary, all the way to then filling in just a little bit of a letter that's not complete. So it has been made easier. I think the question points to the need to be in community. If this is something that's important to you, right? I mean, how many people care about fulfilling this mitzvah? I mean, if we ask that question and answer it, it's going to make a really small subgroup of American Jews, or I'm sorry, of North American Jews. Thank you, Devorah. I was instructed in that before. Yeah, I mean, it is still a mitzvah, just like, I mean, there are many mitzvot that can no longer be fulfilled because we don't have a Beit Mikdash, right?
Right.
And so this is perhaps another, illustration of a mitzvah that it's not impossible to fulfill, and is made more lenient, so more easy for us to fulfill that mitzvah.
Thank you.
Is it important to you? Find a way. Right? I'm saying you and the general you, not you, Ellen, right? Devorah and then Sheila.
I actually had the opportunity to do that, to write a letter in a Torah scroll in a synagogue that was getting a new one done in Toronto, and they were looking for donors to have a turn. And I just kind of went, oh, all right, I'll go, I'll do it. But it really was very profound to actually do it. It was really worthwhile.
Thank you.
So it's worth finding it if you have the opportunity. I would say it is worth just doing it.
That reminds me, here's another way, which is, when a synagogue is thinking about, purchasing a new Torah and has engaged a sofer to write it, don't they ask who would like to buy a letter? Who would like to buy, that person, by purchasing a letter or a pasuk or an entire sefer, according to what we read tonight, is Yotze, right? So there's yet another way that this can be fulfilled. Sheila, and then Reb Sandy will bring us in for a landing.
I wonder if the fact that it's not an optimal thing for most people to buy a Torah, is that perhaps why, if you go back to that question, which is why is it the kings had their Torah and that individuals had their others? Maybe it was the family Torah, and that it was the family that wrote together in the Torah or wrote sections.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite follow.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, there was the passage about how the kings would have their Torah, and each monarch would have their Torah. Is it possible that since buying a Torah for the average, for every man that's a large expense and an undertaking, that the family Torah was something that other family members could participate in? Like maybe, so-and-so did a certain section, but maybe not everyone could complete an entire Torah at that time?
I don't know that we know. So here's a story for you to write. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we know. But, bring that question next week. It's a perfectly legitimate question. Sarah?
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I don't know if Ellen, do you remember when Panay there was an issue and we had a sofer come and we wrote a letter and we practiced writing the letters?
It was Kevin Hale who came.
Yep. Yep. And he had us at the Panayorites. We're not Panayorics. We practiced writing the letters and it was amazing on parchment. Did we do something on the Torah itself, like at the top of a letter or something?
I think Daniel may have, but I don't remember anyone else actually putting their hand to the scroll. And I don't remember.
So here's another question to ask next week. Because I think I remember that if you put your hand on the hand of the sofer, you're also yotze, right? Yeah, I would think that'd be a powerful experience as well. Yeah. Think about all of these things.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That's what I said I did.
I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
somehow missed that. All righty, my holy friends. What a wonderful night. Now I'm really pumped up to see the movie next week. Feel free to, invite friends and pass along, our email that has the link in it. We are, as always, looking for more ways to attract people to our holy community. And you just never know when somebody's going to come and then come back to check out what's going on. Okay. We don't have an ending song for Wednesday nights, Devorah. All we have is a beginning song. So I'm going to end with a song that I was commissioned to write by Eliana Lee, who's going to be doing the Devar Torah this Shabbos. And she asked me to put music to the words Anochi imach, I am with you, which is what divinity says to Yaakov after the dream of the sulam, the ladder of the angels going up and down. And the line actually begins with Hine Anochi imach, here I am with you. And then I added a little bit to it. So this is my prayer for us all this evening. Hine Anochi, Hine Anochi imach, I am with you. Hine Anochi imach, Ruach Elohim be. Your spirit resides within me. Ruach Elohim be. Your spirit resides within me. Hine Anochi, Hine Anochi imach, I am with you. Hine Anochi imach, Anochi imach, Anochi imach. May God be with us all. Good night, everyone.
Mark, can you stay on 1 minute?